Drop the gun! Show me your hands!
After a near record-breaking July, August has slowed things down quite a bit as far as mass shootings go. From July 31st through August 6th, there were 6 reported incidents, and we'll cover each of them after we look at this graph. So prior to 2020, there were 0 months with over 60 mass shootings. Since 2020, it's happened 20 times, 3 times just this year alone. And that's just through July. And the top 5 months this year for mass shootings have been July with 86, May with 79, June with 67, April with 56, and January with 54. February and March both recorded 40. The 86 in July tied for the second highest month for mass shootings in our country's history, tying 2021, but falling short of the 89 recorded in July of 2022. But one thing is clear, the month of July is the deadliest month of the year, year in and year out, as far as mass shootings go. So now let's just take a quick look at the 6 from this past week, starting on July 31st with Columbus, Mississippi. Now this was the first one that Columbus has had this year, and there were 2 suspects in this one, and both were arrested. It was 23-year-old Gavin Fields and 20-year-old Dustin Pope, and they were both brothers. And this apparently started all from an argument. There were 2 cars outside a hospital, and an argument started, and these guys started shooting. And that one, nobody died, but 4 people were injured. And then August 1st was a day off. There were no mass shootings that day. August 2nd, we go to Chicago, Illinois, and this was the 20th in Chicago this year, and we had 1 person killed and 3 people injured. And the victims were aged from 2 to 62, and they were bystanders that were just shot in an exchange of gunfire. And one was a family with a child and that 62-year-old man. Okay, August 3rd, we go to Los Angeles. And this was another one. Nobody died, but 4 were injured. And this was the 6th this year for Los Angeles. And this one is called gang involvement. And it actually happened at an anti-gang violence event. So if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that the FBI does not count a shooting as a mass shooting if it's gang related. That doesn't count. But when you look at it like this happened at an anti-gang violence event. So you have all these people that aren't necessarily in a gang at this event that were shot by gang members. So I don't know if the FBI is going to count that one or not, because maybe the shooters were in a gang, but the people that were getting hit by the gunfire may or may not have been, because they were just people that were at this event. And then we skip August 4th. There was not one that day. And we go to August 5th, where we had 2. The Lafayette, Louisiana, this was their 2nd of the year. And 1 person died in this one and 4 were injured. And the suspect was injured and arrested. And this all started as a fight. And 2 law enforcement officers were also injured when they arrived on scene from the same suspect. He was injured. I don't know how many times it said they shot him, but he's in the hospital. And DC, they had their 7th. 3 people were killed and 4 were injured. And this came on Saturday night, and this was a lot of shootings that night in DC. There were 4 separate shootings just a couple hours prior to this mass shooting, and 3 people were killed and 4 injured in those separate shootings. And then they had this mass shooting that also had 3 people injured and 4 killed. And DC has been kind of out of control lately if you haven't been paying attention. And I have no idea how that one started or what happened. The police, they say they don't know. It just, all these people just had died. So then we go to August 6th in Edinburgh, Texas, where 7 people were injured, and this is the first one for Edinburgh this year. And it appears to be a drive-by that happened at the El Antro nightclub. And drive-bys are one of the more common ways that these happen. And what we had earlier, that event is also that anti-gang event that we had in Los Angeles. That's another, if you're at any of these events where there's a lot of people gathered in like a parking lot type area or a field or something like that, those are often places that it happens. And we also had the one that was at the bar outside that nightclub. That is very common as well. So a lot of these were ones that are like very common reasons for there to result in a mass shooting. So 2 of these 6 cities were reporting their first mass shooting of the year. 1/3 of them. That was the Edinburgh, Texas one, and that was the Columbus, Mississippi one. And if you look at the populations of these cities, you have as small as Columbus, Mississippi, that had 22,000, and as high as Los Angeles, that's got over 4 million, and that's the second largest. Chicago, of course, is in there. They got over 2.6 million. They're the 3rd largest city in the country. But you got DC, that's got over 600,000, and both Edinburgh and Lafayette have over 100,000 people. So this happens in cities of all sizes. And the one thing I noticed about all of these is that aside from Edinburgh, Texas, whose population is actually rising, and that was, like I said, that was their first one. All the rest of these, Lafayette's kind of staying steady. They're kind of on a flat line right now as far as their population goes. But all the other ones have declining populations. And that should come as no shock to anybody. And the Columbus, Mississippi, I looked at last year, the 2 that this was their first one. I looked at last year's, and Columbus, Mississippi had one last year on Christmas Eve. So they almost made it all the way through last year without one. And Edinburgh didn't have one last year either. So this is their first one in at least a couple years. I didn't look back further than that. But the rest of the cities, you know, they had, I mean, Los Angeles and Chicago and DC had many, and Lafayette, I think, had 2 or 3 last year. If you like these types of videos, hit that like button. Leave your thoughts in the comments and consider subscribing if you're not already. Stay safe, America. Keep your head on a swivel, and remember, a bullet can travel over a mile unimpeded. So keep dodging those strays till these shooters get better aim.